Captain Midnight.
In early 2024, I released a video called Spider-Man 4 Has to Be Great, about just how important it was for Marvel and Sony to nail this new chapter for the webhead. Coming off of No Way Home, my fear was that the movie would succumb to a bigger is always better mentality that could have led them down the wrong path after the massive team-up of Holland's third movie. But Spider-Man Brand New Day managed to be, in so many ways, exactly what I was hoping for, sidestepping the need for every Spider-Man movie to feel more and more like a massive event comic and telling a more personal Peter Parker story. And now the question of what comes next is up in the air, and it feels like they have so many options. Now, Spider-Man 5 is not official yet. I think we all know it'll happen, but with Doomsday and Secret Wars on the horizon and director Destin Daniel Cretton busy getting a Naruto movie off the ground, the future of the MCU Spidey is a little bit hazy, and it could be a while until his next one. Now, these Avengers movies promise to shake up the Marvel Cinematic Universe, obviously. The assumption I'm making right now is that, while it won't be a hard reboot, I expect Secret Wars to be more of a continuity facelift. Probably not how Marvel would want it described, but you know what I mean. Simplifying things, tossing stories and characters that aren't working, and retaining what did. Spider-Man is definitely in that very much working column. And when you factor in the Sony of it all, I feel like it's pretty obvious that Peter Parker is going to be movie ready in a few years, no matter what happens in Secret Wars. So what should that look like? Now, before I get into what I want to see, I should say that I just launched a Patreon last week, where you can get monthly Q&A videos alongside some other cool tiers. I've already gotten a lot of great questions. I can't wait to talk about the Batman vs. Dark Knight, my ideas for Marvel's TV strategy, and a lot more. If you want to go over there and check it out, you can have your question answered in that first video later this month. Oh, and if there's not much Brand New Day footage in here, that's because Sony has been claiming videos on the channel like crazy lately, a big part of why the Patreon exists. Brand New Day features a Spider-Man that's both fairly grounded, at least by the standards of multiverse hopping heroes these days, and one that can comfortably interact with the rest of the MCU. And I think they'll probably want to strike that balance again. So what's the best way to go about that? Well, I've noticed that when people talk about the next Spider-Man movie, no matter the year, for some reason, a lot will default to the symbiote storyline. And I guess I get it. Despite being a movie I enjoy and having an absolutely awesome looking black suit, Spider-Man 3 left a lot on the table in that department. I mean, just getting a comic accurate black costume would look amazing. But I don't think that's where they should go here. And Tom Holland seemed dismissive of the idea too, saying he's not sure how they do the suit better than the video game. Considering the Venom series is now wound down, the unaddressed crossover from No Way Home that went nowhere, yeah, I think the symbiote stuff is just a mess right now, and I don't think they want to risk the next Spider-Man movie on sorting that out. Now, Spider-Man does get the black suit in the original Secret Wars story, so I understand why some would expect it there. I'm just not really sure I need that told again, especially when Brand New Day already had a version of Peter who doesn't have complete control over himself, is lashing out and being an overly violent Spider-Man. Now, I know that wasn't an element of the original Black Suit story, where it just kind of takes his body for joyrides, but it has come to define the symbiote and Spider-Man's relationship since the 90s cartoon at least, and it just feels like ground that we don't need treaded on again. I would like to see something on a smaller scale. Now, I have a villain in mind, but it may sound underwhelming at first, so bear with me. No Way Home caused the loss of Peter's identity. Brand New Day saw him as he spent all of his time building up his life as Spider-Man, but ignoring Peter Parker, only for the seeds to be planted for Peter's identity to come back into focus through recovering his relationships with Ned and MJ. Now, one of the classic tropes of Spider-Man is that when Spidey is doing well, Peter Parker isn't, and vice versa. It's a balance he's constantly struggling with. So with Peter's life getting better and Spider-Man having never been more beloved by New Yorkers, this is now a fairly happy character we're talking about here, so something has gotta give. And you know, after Jean Grey took us in a different direction, I'd love to get back to a classic Spidey villain. And when I say classic, I really mean it here. Spider-Man's very first supervillain, dating back to Amazing Spider-Man #1, Chameleon. I love this guy, and for being such a foundational villain, what does he have to show for it? He's some lackey that shares his name and nothing else in Far From Home. A really underwhelming portrayal in Kraven the Hunter, which sets him up for sequels that will never happen. I think he deserves better. And I think his role as a master of disguise or a superpowered shapeshifter, depending on the version of the character we're talking about, can expand on Brand New Day's issue of identity, but flipped on its head with the Spider-Man side of his life coming into question, just when it started going so well. Now, villains dressing up as Spider-Man in order to trick the public is nothing new. It happens in that very first issue. It's a plot point in the 1994 show, Spectacular Spider-Man, and way more. You could argue it's overdone, but I think writers go back to that well for a reason. It really works. As a solo hero whose reputation with the public is always up in the air, a truly evil doppelganger who sets out to ruin his life can be a compelling and devastating turn for Peter Parker. And the fact that this hasn't been done yet on the big screen just makes it ripe for adaptation for me. And yeah, the public turning against Spidey angle has already been done with the ending of Far From Home. But I think the way it can be used to ruin his actual personal relationships is something we haven't seen these movies really do yet. Peter reconnected with his friends in Brand New Day, but that connection is still new to them. They still don't really know him yet. Hope dangles on a string, like slow-spinning redemption, but it's fragile. A creepy, personally invasive threat like Chameleon could topple all the slow progress Peter's made after years of hard work and loneliness. And I know that Chameleon has lingered in fans' minds as kind of a low-level threat. You know, like henchman tier, like Hammerhead or the Enforcers. I'm tired of it. I think with the right script and the right actor, this man could wreak absolute havoc on the life of Peter Parker and reestablish himself near the top of Spider-Man's rogues gallery. One thing I really liked about Brand New Day is that MJ and Peter's relationship is still in such an uncertain place at the end of it. We see Peter's ideal scenario play out, where Jean toys with him and has MJ acting like all of her memories came flooding back and everything can return to the way that it was. But that's not the reality. Years have passed, she's in another relationship, and as she says, she doesn't love him because she doesn't know him. Now, some have interpreted the ending where Ned remembers the handshake as confirmation that Doctor Strange's spell has been undone. I'm not buying into that, and I sure as hell hope that's not the direction they go with it, because this status quo of MJ being sympathetic to what Peter's gone through while not sharing those experiences herself is a much more interesting one, and sets Peter up for a lot of yearning and potential heartbreak, where the pair just aren't in the right place to get back together. And that is where Felicia Hardy could come in. Okay, listen, again, it's just crazy that this many movies in, we've never had a real Black Cat on screen. Felicia working for Oscorp or whatever in Amazing Spider-Man 2 does not count. She's a top-tier Spider-Man character who's been doomed to only meet the video game versions of previous Spider-Men, and I'm tired of it. With Holland's Spider-Man well established and not some high school kid anymore, I think it's time he finally crosses paths with her. More specifically though, I think the No Way Home spell would put a potential Black Cat in a very unique position. If you know one thing about her interest in Spider-Man, it's probably that she's far more interested in him as a superhero than as Peter Parker, consistently baffled that he chooses to live his life as who she sees as a boring nobody instead of as his alter ego. It's rarely a convincing argument, since we know Peter has a very real and rich life outside of the costume, but this Peter really doesn't. Sure, he reestablished a friendship with Ned, he's reconnected with MJ, but he still lived as Spider-Man, and basically Spider-Man only, for years now. I think Black Cat's old argument would actually make a lot more sense here. His life outside the costume was literally erased. The temptation to leave Peter Parker behind has never made more sense, which, granted, does risk repeating some beats from Brand New Day. Still, I have just never seen a Black Cat story like that. You could take a very comic-accurate version of this character and place her into this context where the life she wants Peter to live is more compelling to him than ever before. So that's a big part of my pitch. Make Spider-Man 5 a smaller, identity-driven movie with Chameleon as the villain and Black Cat as a new complication in Peter's life. I think it's a good start, but with Chameleon turning New York against Spider-Man, it's also the perfect time to get Daredevil and Kingpin involved. Keep it all in the New York crime underworld family. while finally putting all these characters on screen together after the tease that was Matt Murdock in No Way Home. I will admit, this is not some super fleshed out pitch, but it's these kind of ingredients that I would love to see going forward. A Spider-Man movie happy to dive into some of the character's oldest supporting players and its iconography. Now, there's a very decent chance they would rather do like a big MCU X-Men crossover, and that could work, don't get me wrong. But with Brand New Day's back to basics approach working so well, I would love if they leaned into that more. Sony has the rights to all these classic Spidey characters, and they've been wasting a lot of them in bad movies where they don't even meet Spider-Man. This many movies in, there's still so many stellar characters that haven't gotten their time to shine. And with a solo Spider-Man movie proving this successful, now seems like the best possible time to trust that people will be curious enough to check them out, even without a broader MCU connection. So, accuse me of playing it safe if you want, but the MCU's Peter, with Spider-Man now so well established, and his personal life so up in the air, lends itself to telling a great, more standalone Spider-Man story. But this is definitely one where I want to know what you think. Would you prefer a Spider-Man X-Men story? Are you dying to see Holland face off against Venom? Or maybe you think it's finally time for that Ned Leeds Hobgoblin story? I want to hear what you think, and I'll definitely be reading them all down below.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.